Krinky, question of expediency. Recently, I have repeatedly encountered the opinion that the events that are taking place on the left bank of the Kherson region near Krinky are not worth the effort and resources that are being expended on them. However, none of the authors of these messages has been able to make an elementary comparison between the resources spent by the AFU and those used by Russian troops. Not so long ago, the Dnieper group of troops operating on the left bank of the river was considered one of the least combat-ready, only the defense of Crimea was worse. However, very quickly it significantly increased its potential, primarily due to quantitative growth. In 3 months, the personnel grew from 60,000 to 72,000 people. As of today, the Dnieper troop group also has 400 tanks, 900 armored fighting vehicles, 500 barrel armor and about 100 multiple rocket launchers. This increase occurred through the redeployment of a number of units from the groups Zaporizhia and defense of Crimea. That is according to the principle, somewhere arrived, somewhere decreased, and thus weakened. A grouping of more than 72,000 people with a full range of forces and means at its disposal, suffering huge losses, is unable to cope with small Ukrainian company-level units with limited functionality, with only artillery and drones from the right bank as support. At the same time, the command of the group is urgently and hastily increasing its number at the expense of other groups of troops, clearly unable to cope with the situation. The left bank of the Kherson region, it would seem, has a more favorable position than the right, because there is no full-flowing river, which is an obstacle to retreat, but there is a nuance. The left bank has rather limited logistics. There are not so many full-fledged arteries, highways here, and those providing the first line of the left bank are concentrated very close to the coast itself. For example, Olishki is dependent on the P57 and E97, which just south of the floodplain splits into 22206. In other words, physically cutting one or both of them will isolate Olishki. As for 22206, it is not only the main artery on the left bank to Novokakhovka, but also with the transition to M14 leads directly to Melitopol. In fact, as of today we can already note the lack of control by enemy forces over the first line road. And the movement of enemy equipment along the section south of Krinky, which is about 20 kilometers long, is extremely dangerous. Now this section is literally strewn with various Russian scrap metal. The expediency of such actions and the purpose of the Ukrainian defense forces is obvious, and the command of the Dnieper group understands it perfectly well, but they cannot prevent this process in any way, with all their quantitative and overall resource superiority. The most important thing to realize is that the processes taking place on the left bank are slow by definition. On the other hand, when they reach their catharsis, everything will accelerate, and we will be left guessing which line will become the main one for the retreating enemy forces to consolidate.